Good morning. It's Mark Reed. It is September 8th. September 8th, 2024. I haven't posted any videos for a while, so I thought I'd make one this morning. It's going to be just a general rambling of stuff going on in the garden and probably mostly focused on sweet potatoes. Um, Sweet potatoes here have turned feral, growing wild. I've got a little spot here but I had intended to plant some onions in the fall, which I guess I'll do. But as soon as I worked it up and put a little water on it, of course, a sweet potato popped up. That one coming up in September, it's not got a lot of a chance of making anything, but they just do that all the time. Here I got some of the most yummy tomatoes I've ever tasted. I don't know where they came from really. I've got a bunch of variations that came from a cross between a domestic tomato, I don't know which domestic tomato, and some currant tomatoes a few years ago, and they've just been segregating ever since. Come on inside the garden, and here just inside the gate got a couple sweet potatoes that came up volunteer. They weren't terribly late, but here by the gate they have been stomped on several times and ran over by the cart a lot, not watered, and they just a little bit puny. Might dig this smaller one up just out of curiosity and see what kind of a root it might have made. Here in these recycled yellow pots, I've got a half a dozen or so volunteers that came up quite early enough that I dedicated, went to the bother of making them some pots and planting them. I like this one. I like the foliage on this one. No good indication yet of what kind of a root it'll make. Sometimes you can tell from the primary stem. If I could get a shot of that. And this one has a big, thick primary stem down in there, which unfortunately a lot of times indicates that it won't have a lot of good roots. So, moving up this line are clones of the best of my plants from the last few years. There's not a lot of fresh flowers open this morning. See, these are yesterday's flowers, and they're only preserved in that good, being a day old, because it turned cool. So I'm guessing that the reason there aren't fresh flowers this morning is because it got down to 46 degrees last night, and I don't think they liked that. Here is one that I call Miss Bloom, because she blooms a lot, and it's an ornamental. It doesn't make much in the way of a storage root, a root that you can eat. Here's another volunteer. Don't know what it might be. And here, I dug one up a little bit earlier. Made some nice little potatoes. These are some of my clones, but they were just thrown in the ground here as an afterthought. They had no water or even good soil at all, really. But they're pretty abundantly seeding, which is curious because the same plants cloned from the same roots growing over here in these big tubs for us to have a lot to eat have not bloomed and seeded a lot. Now I wonder about that because these have good soil, they had compost, even some composted chicken manure, they've been watered regularly, and they're not blooming as much as the ones that were neglected here in the ground. That's curious. But you do, even in neglect and even when planted late, you get a little bit of a harvest. Plus, it seems like more seeds. So, here's one that's an exception to my rule of favoring bushy plants. It grows into a large vine, and it has, instead of clumps of seeds like the ones over there, it just has one or two at almost every leaf joint. It's a good white-fleshed, not very sweet, white-fleshed potato or sweet potato that's good fried with onions and stuff instead of used what I think of as more traditionally like a sweet potato where you bake them in the oven and they're real sweet. Here, another late sprouting volunteer. And these are, after I made my slips for sprouting, I just threw the roots down in this tub, didn't even bury them, just to see what they'll do. So this root here, for example, is the root that was harvested last September. And I made slips off of it and then just threw it here, and this is what it looks like. I'll be curious to see if these made any new storage roots down lower in the pot. This one I called last year. It came up volunteer last year and I liked it. I called it Pink Panther because it's white, but it has pink swirls inside the root. And it's making good seeds. But it was a volunteer and puny, and we didn't really have much to evaluate as far as flavor from it. And here is the root that was harvested last year and that this plant was cloned from. I just threw it down there and it's still here. Some more later sprouting volunteers. There were a bunch of them in this spot here, but I pulled them out and worked it up so that I could plant those radishes. What else we got going on? But over here, if I can find them, these volunteers are everywhere, little volunteers mostly. Here's one. This one's awful pretty, I think, with that purple. I think the leaves are maybe curled up like that a little bit again because of the 46, I think it was this morning, temperatures last night. And they're one of the better volunteers. If I can get over here and show it to you. And that had no little care is this one. It has a lot of flowers, but it is not, well, no, I started to say I didn't think it was setting seeds, but that's a seed pod that's starting to set. It's a nice bushy plant, and if indeed it happens to make a decent root, I may keep it to clone next year. And then down here is another, probably the biggest of all of the volunteers. Well, the biggest volunteers are the ones that I put into the pots. But this one was left here in this soil, which is not the best soil in my garden. It's got a lot of flowers, but not setting a lot of seeds. So, don't know what's up with it. And these are more of the clones that were left over that the girl here stuck over here. And they've done better than the ones over there. And I think the reason is because these big trees have shaded them some from the hottest afternoon sun. And are they making seeds? Yeah, they're making seeds. There's some right there. I can't tell for sure if the way the sun's shining, if you're getting good view or not. Here's a really nice seed capsule. See, it's big and full. It's probably got 4 seeds in it. A lot of times they just have 3 or 2 or even 1. But that one looks real nice. So anyway, that's what's happening. Just kind of a ramble, unscripted video about the 2024 sweet potatoes. Bye.